Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Cadola Ahrens Automatic Racecraft Black. This watch is available from cadola1946.com for €216. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in a cardboard watch box, which is protected by this cardboard sleeve. So one removes the sleeve, and this is the cardboard watch box itself. The lid to the watch box is branded with Cadola's logo, and one removes the lid, and inside the watch is protected by this foam panel. One removes. On the underside of the lid, it's upholstered to a good standard with contrasting blue velour fabric, and there's a Cadola branded pocket, and this houses items which I'll show you. The base is also fully upholstered with contrasting blue velour fabric to a good standard, and the watch sits in the base on a padded pillow cushion which is cream velour fabric upholstered to a good standard, and in the base there's also a second foam panel, and this does a good job of protecting the watch in shipping from any damage. However, I'm going to be critical of it because this is a basic default option, the least expensive option for low-tier Chinese brands to use a cardboard watch box. One could be magnanimous about it if this were below €100, but we're looking at a €216 price piece in the low tier. So to clarify, low tier is €0 to €500. For reference, compare this to the PU leather or vinyl green watch case that San Martin are using. I recently reviewed the San Martin SN0133G, and it comes in the green San Martin case, and it's far better presentation, better quality. Now the thing to note is the San Martin SN0133G is less expensive. It's €197. This is €216, but the cardboard watch box is poor quality. Disappointing. I'd like to see Cadola improve upon it. With regards to the items that come with the piece, this is the owner's instruction manual in the form of a fold-out leaflet. Clear, concise diagrams. The instructions are in English, and it details the operation of the movement used, which is the Seiko Caliber NH35A Automatic. On the reverse, there's also a QR code. You can scan the QR code with your Android or iPhone. That will download the owner's instruction manual as an alternative to opening out this fold-out leaflet and reading it. And one also gets this plastic warranty card, which is branded with Cadola and international warranty. On the front there's a QR code you can scan with your Android or iPhone. That will activate the 2-year international warranty from the date of purchase. On the reverse, it details the terms and conditions of the 2-year international warranty. There's also space to fill in the reference number, serial number, date of purchase and retailer stamp. I want to give due credit to Cadola here because often low-tier Chinese brands only cover their watches with a 12-month international warranty. To get 2 years of international warranty is good, and they deserve credit for that, although I would like to see the warranty card actually filled in with the details rather than being left blank. And lastly, one also gets this cardboard Cadola tag, which has Cadola text logo on the front, and on the reverse we have the barcode and the full reference number of the piece, the Ahrens Automatic Racecraft Black. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, we have a 42mm case diameter, we have a lug-to-lug measurement of 48.8mm, a thickness of 14.1mm, and a lug width of 20mm. The bracelet tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to 16mm at the flip block clasp, which is a 2-button push clasp. So I'm pleased to see the perfection personified taper that I often refer to in my previous reviews. 20 to 16 looks good, feels good, it's the perfect taper. We have a single domed sapphire crystal. Now this may come as a surprise to you because double domed sapphire crystals, flat sapphire crystals, or alternatively a boxed top hat style crystal, they are now the industry standards. This uses a single domed sapphire crystal. So to clarify, single dome is flat on the underside, curved on the top side. Double domed is curved on the top side, curved on the underside. The negative of this being single domed versus double domed is when I tilt the piece at an oblique angle, you can see the problem. Because it's flat on the underside rather than being curved on the underside as per a double dome sapphire crystal, one gets this distortion and magnification effect. When you view the dial straight on, it looks like a magnifying glass effect. Because it's flat on the underside and curved on the top side, it magnifies the dial, the applied indices and the baton handset. That's not really a problem because it has AR coating on the underside, which improves the legibility and the reflective nature of a single domed sapphire crystal, but it is a problem when you tilt the piece at an oblique angle, as you can see, because it distorts rather like a thick acrylic crystal, and that's the negative of single dome sapphire crystals. This is the reason why double dome sapphire crystals have now become the industry standard, because the legibility is better. They don't have the magnification and distortion effect one gets with a single dome sapphire crystal with a flat underside. So problem is when you tilt the piece, there are two problems. You can see there's a blue hue because they've made the mistake of using blue tinted AR coating versus clear AR coating. Clear AR coating gives more clarity. Blue tinted AR coating works well with blue dials, regardless of whether they are enamel blue, textured blue or sunburst blue. The point is the blue AR coating complements the blue dial piece, but when you have a matte black dial like this, clear AR coating is beneficial because one doesn't get this blue hue. So, problem is the blue hue of the AR coating doesn't actually improve the legibility or the clarity. As you can see, it's poor quality, and it compounds the magnification and distortion effect of the thick crystal. The other problem is the single domed sapphire crystal is too thick. This piece is 100 meters. It does not need such a thick single dome sapphire crystal. We're not looking at a dive piece with 200 meters or 300 meters of hermetic seal. A crystal only providing 100 meters of hermetic seal can be far thinner. It can be 1 millimeter to 1.5 millimeters. It doesn't need to be 2 millimeters plus, as per a 200 or 300 meter water resistant piece. So, three problems. Blue tinted AR coating is poor quality, thickness of the crystal is too thick, and it's single domed rather than double domed, so we have magnification and distortion effect. This is a fundamental that Cadola have made a mistake on, and it's just disappointing at this price point. One could be magnanimous about these kind of errors if this were a low tier Chinese made piece below €100, but it's not. It's €216. This is competing directly head to head with San Martin pieces such as the SN0133G, which is excellent. So, applied indices, baton hands. Baton hands are faceted and they are brushed satin finish versus being mirror polished. Correctly proportioned. The minutes baton hand extends all the way to the chapter ring, and the baton hour hand extends all the way to the applied indices. The applied indices are also satin finish versus mirror polished, so they complement the faceted baton hands. Contrasting, blue second hand is long enough, correctly proportioned, it extends all the way to the minute ticks on the chapter ring. So, proportions of the handset are good, legibility is good, the hands and also the contrasting blue second hand contrasts very well with a matte blue dial. Frame date complication with a yellow frame and a yellow horizontal line adds interest to the dial, otherwise it would be monochrome. But, however, there is an error here, and it's fundamental. They've printed 100M, the water resistance, at the 12 o'clock position beneath the Cadola framed brand logo. The industry standard is always to print water resistance ratings, regardless of whether they're in feet or meters or both, at this 6 o'clock position. The water resistance rating should be printed below automatic, for example. Automatic at the 6 o'clock position looks okay in cursive text and the proportions of the font are correct. It doesn't look too large. But, however, 100M in blue is in the wrong position. It's at 12. It should always be at 6. They should simply delete this because this is a daily wear piece. We're not looking at a dive piece, so therefore we do not need to know that it is 100 meters of hermetic seal. If this were a dive piece, of course we'd need to know it's 200 meters or 300 meters, etc. But for a daily wear piece, it's negligible information. It just makes the dial look cluttered, and the problem is now the dial doesn't look balanced because we have Cadola's text logo, which is framed in white at 12, plus the 100M in contrasting blue to match the second hand, plus automatic. But the 12 o'clock printing of the logo plus the water resistance rating doesn't balance the one line of text automatic in cursive font at 6. So it's now a top heavy dial. The design doesn't look balanced. So they should simply delete the 100M in blue and delete 100M from the dial because it's negligible information. So this is a fundamental, and of course one can be magnanimous about these kind of mistakes or errors below €100, but not at €216. These are the fundamentals of design one has to get correct. In terms of symmetry to the dial, it's good because we've got double applied indices at 12 and then single indices for the other hour marks, and then we have the frame date complication at the 3 o'clock position. The proportions of the framing are good, and proportions of the single and the double Arabic numerals, which are white on the black date wheel, are correct. So legibility is good despite the thickness of the single domed crystal and the negative of the blue hue of the AR coating when you tilt it at an oblique angle. As you can see, when I tilt it slightly, the blue hue is very poor quality AR coating, and you can see the legibility is diminished. The purpose of AR coating is to make the clarity better, the legibility better, but ironically what it does here is it actually makes it worse. It looks more like a reflective mirror. So two problems: flat single domed sapphire crystal plus the blue tinted AR coating. Had they used clear AR coating and a double dome sapphire crystal, the clarity, the legibility would be enhanced, and you can see This is the negative. So we're looking at error after error. So let's look at the bezel. Solid 3160 grade stainless steel, coin edge finished, nice large chamfer which deletes the sharp tips to the coin edge teeth. It's low profile which gives the piece a vintage aesthetic. Aluminium bezel insert which is anodised in black and anodised in orange. This reminds me of a Planet Ocean bezel because of the orange anodising and black anodising. And we've got a 12-hour scale on it versus a dive bezel. Subjectively, one could be critical and say this would be more useful if it had a dive bezel on it with minute marks on it, but however, one can use the 12-hour bezel for a second time zone if you set it to the hour hand. Some collectors will like that. In terms of the anodising, it's done to a good standard, but however, I'm going to be critical of the use of aluminium as the bezel insert material because this is not a €100 and below price point piece in the low tier. We're looking at €216, and the industry standard at €216 in the low tier is to use a ceramic bezel insert because, needless to say, ceramic is a superior material. It's harder and more scratch resistant. Problem with using an aluminium bezel insert is that it's prone to being scuffed and scratched, and of course the anodising will fade. And this is the negative of aluminium bezel inserts. They should have used a ceramic bezel insert at this price point. Yes, it does look aesthetically pleasing with the orange anodising contrasting with the matte black anodising, but the problem is scratch resistance, the long-term durability. With daily wear and tear, this aluminium bezel insert is quickly going to become scuffed and scratched and fade. A ceramic bezel insert would be beneficial. Also, the lume pip beneath the 12 Arabic numerals is undersized, and we'll show that in the lume test, the negative of it. The lume pip is too small. They've infilled the hole in the aluminium bezel insert with C3 Superlume Nova, but it's too small to be beneficial. What they should have done was delete the 12 Arabic numerals and use an applied lume pip in a triangle and enlarge the proportions of it rather than having the 12 Arabic numerals on the bezel. Really, this is a mistake after mistake we're looking at. So, bezel is well finished, the coin edge portion of it, solid 3160 grade stainless steel, and it's brushed satin finish versus mirror polished, which matches the brushed satin finishing to the tops of the lugs and the flanks of the case. So the bezel does look aesthetically pleasing. The aluminium bezel insert is anodised to a good standard. The legibility of it is good, but the Arabic numerals look very small. I think they've made a mistake by using a two-tone bezel with anodised black and anodised orange. It would look better if it was monochrome, either all black or all orange, because they could enlarge the Arabic numerals for the 12 hours and also enlarge the hour marks rather than having this 60-minute scale or like a chapter ring around the bezel. So it's poor design, and really the Arabic numerals are too small to be beneficial and legible. One thing I do like is the brushed satin finished stainless steel ring which goes in between the bezel or the bezel insert and also around the single dome sapphire crystal. It does add interest to it. I think it's clearly inspired by the Omega Planet Ocean, which also has a silver ring around the sapphire crystal and inside the aluminium bezel insert. So I think they've replicated or copied, or they've been inspired by the Omega Planet Ocean orange version, which has an orange anodised bezel, because you can see the similarity. We've got the orange anodised tone of the inner portion and then the black anodised tone of the outer portion. It does look aesthetically pleasing if you like aluminium bezel inserts, but I think ceramic would have been better for the reasons I've detailed. So, case is solid 3160 grade stainless steel, longitudinal brushed satin finishing to the tops of the curved lugs, and that complements the longitudinal brushed satin finishing to the flanks. Nice fine grain finish to the satin finishing on the tops of the lugs and the flanks, and beautiful lustre to it. The undercuts to the flanks have been deburred and chamfered to a satisfactory standard, so no sharp edge, that's good. And I like that these sides aren't slab-sided, they're low-profile flanks, which is good, so visually it looks lower profile than it actually is. It's a very thick piece at 14.1. But I like that the tips of the lugs have bevels, they're deburred and chamfered on both sides of the case. Let's look at the crown in detail. Solid 3160 grade stainless steel crown, and it's matte satin finished versus mirror polished. Large chamfer which deletes the sharp tips of the coin edge teeth, correctly proportioned. It's large enough to be grippy and tactile, so one can easily get good purchase with one's index finger and thumb. And it's signed with the Cadola C engraved because, needless to say, Cadola text logo isn't going to fit easily inside the small diameter of the crown. The C for Cadola is good. I'm pleased that it's not sterile and unsigned. So let's test the push-pull crown execution. The push-pull crown provides an effective hermetic seal to 100 meters. It's disappointing at this price point, €216, not to see a screw down crown. Again, this is the industry standard. At the €216 price point, one expects 100 metres and a screw down crown. A push-pull crown is a production cost cutting measure too far in order to maximise profit margin per piece. It's disappointing. But let's test the execution nonetheless. So as it's a push-pull crown in the closed position, one can manually wind the Seiko Caliber NH35A automatic to its maximum 41-hour power reserve. Feels smooth to manually wind. You'll all be familiar with the NH35A. Doesn't feel rough or gritty. One can feel the tension in the mainspring gradually building up. Feels pleasant to manually wind. Pulling it out to the first click position is the quickset date complication. So if you look at the yellow framing around the black date wheel with white Arabic numerals, you can see the quickset complication clicks over with a nice heavy positive click. This is a characteristic I like about the NH35A, and I often refer to it in my previous reviews. The heavy clicking sensation. Feels solid, feels reliable, feels robust, and I like that heavy feeling of it. It sounds good, nice loud audible click, also feels good. You can feel every day of the month clicking over with a nice solid click. The alignment of the single and the double Arabic numerals are correct inside the yellow framed window because they're not too far to the left or the right and they're not too high or too low in the date window. So the framing is good, font is sharp and crisp, it's high definition, it's not too thick and blurry, and the font is clearly legible. The white Arabic numerals contrast very well with the black date wheel. Pulling it out to the second click position hacks the movement. If you look at the contrasting light blue second hand, you can see it's now stopped dead, so therefore it's possible to set the time precisely to the second with the Seiko Caliber NH35A automatic. So hacking works well. We're now in the time setting position. Feels smooth clockwise and anti-clockwise. No resistance, low friction, and I like it. It doesn't feel rough or gritty to set the time, and the gearing meshes well, feels smooth. This is what I like about the NH35A. It's reliable, well-proven workhorse caliber, made in Japan. Minimal backplay when you rotate the coin edge crown. There's an almost immediate response. Pushing the crown back in restarts the movement, and the contrasting light blue second hand begins to sweep around the dial once again at the characteristic 3Hz sweep. Now subjectively one can be critical of the stutter or judder of the 3Hz sweep, but I appreciate this is subjective. For the majority of collectors, the stutter or judder of the 3Hz sweep is a characteristic of the NH35A they are accustomed to, and therefore they don't regard it as detrimental. I personally prefer the smoother 4Hz sweep of a movement running at 28,800 vibrations per hour, such as the 9000 series of Miyota premium calibers, such as my personal favourites, the 9015 and the 9039 respectively. But the NH35A is reliable, it's robust, it's a well-proven workhorse caliber, and one just has to live with the 3Hz stutter or judder of the sweep of the second hand. That's just the way it is. Let's test pushing the crown back down. So pulling it out hacks the movement, as you can see. Pushing it back in's got a nice solid click. So works well. It's just disappointing it's not a screw down crown at this price point. If this were below €100, one could be magnanimous about a push-pull crown. But at €216, this has to be a screw down crown. I appreciate this is a dive piece, it's a daily wear piece with a 12-hour bezel on it, but nonetheless it needs to have a screw down crown at this price point. It downgrades it. Push-pull is a production cost-cutting measure. Right, so let's test the bezel execution. 120 click unidirectional bezel. Now, unfortunately, it gets tighter or looser as you rotate it through the 360 degrees, so it doesn't feel even all the way through the 360 degrees. It gets heavier and lighter, heavier and then lighter as you rotate through the 360 degrees. This is a fundamental Cadola need to get correct, because even with low tier pieces below the €100 price point, and I'll reference the Steel Dive ST 1953, which is €80, and I'll reference the Pagani Design PD1661, which is a similar price point. They are below €100. The bezel execution is better because it's even all the way through the 360 degrees. It doesn't get heavier or looser. It feels medium resistance all the way. This has firm resistance, so to put it into perspective, the resistance feels firmer than a Seiko 5KX. It's firmer than a Steel Dive ST 1953. It's firmer than a Pagani Design PD1661. It feels heavier. That's not a negative. I like a firm resistance. I like medium bezels where they've got a balance between being light and heavy resistance, where the rotation feels medium as per a Seiko 5KX or a San Martin piece such as the SN017G, which you'll all be familiar with. This feels firmer, but the problem is the rotation gets looser and tighter as it rotates. It just doesn't feel even. So it's a fundamental they need to refine. On a positive note, there's no lateral side-to-side play, which is good. But we've got another negative. it's got significant back play in it. Now I'm just going to check it in 4 positions, because when I level criticism at a brand, I like to be fair rather than unfair, and I like to be unbiased. So I'm going to check the back play in 4 positions and confirm it's there. Yes, the back play is present all the way around the 360 degrees of rotation, so all of the 120 clicks, the click spring has back play in it. Again, this is a fundamental that Cadola need to get correct. One could be magnanimous about some backplay in a bezel if this were below €100 in the low tier. This is €216. It is going directly head to head with St. Martin pieces such as the SN0133G, which I previously reviewed. That is €197, but that has excellent bezel execution. It's wholly unacceptable to have backplay at €216. So let's check the alignment. One more click. It's incorrect. I'll check it 2 more times. 3 out of 3 times is sufficient to test it. Because again, when I level criticism at a brand, I like to be fair rather than unfair, and I like to be unbiased. So, 1 more click. It's too far to the left. I'll check it 3 out of 3 times. This is the 3rd and final chance. This is dreadful. 1 more click. Too far to the left. 3 out of 3 times, the loomed pip and also the 12 o'clock hour marker on the 12-hour bezel is slightly to the left of the double applied indices and the 60-minute ticks on the chapter ring. 3 out of 3 times it's wrong. It's to the left every single time. And the problem with this is the backplay, because even though it's misaligned, you can't align it, because just look how sloppy it is. Just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus. We're looking at half a click of backplay. And bear in mind, I rotated it, I gave it 4 chances. I checked it in 4 different positions of the 360 degrees of rotation to check the backplay was present in all 4 positions, and it is. And we're looking at a full half a click of backplay. Look at the loom pip, the amount of backplay. So the bezel is misaligned, it's too far to the left, but then if you do align it, you've got this sloppy backplay. Half a click. This is dreadful. And this is a fundamental that Cadola need to get correct. As I've detailed, one could be magnanimous if this were below €100. One has to be realistic and expect some production cost-cutting measures with a low-tier Chinese-made piece. But this is €216. It is expensive in the low tier. Dreadful. So we've got 2 main problems. It doesn't feel even all the way through the 360 degrees. It gets tighter and looser. Half a click of backplay all the way around the bezel. Dreadful. The positives are there's no lateral side-to-side play, and the other positive is it has firm resistance. But this is a fundamental they need to get right. So dreadful bezel execution. They really need to improve upon it. Now, let's check the bracelet and end link. So, articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. Dreadful. This is one of the worst bracelets I have reviewed on my channel. I've reviewed over 500 pieces, and as you know, I have reviewed a plethora of low tier pieces. So to clarify, to remind you again, low tier is €0 to €500 price point. If this were below €100, one could be more magnanimous about these kind of QC defects or production cost cutting measures. But this is sloppy. And it's got play in every single direction. We're looking at lateral, side to side, up and down, and longitudinal play. Every single direction. This is a fundamental. It's very easy to correct because it's simply caused by the holes being drilled too large in the end links of the bracelet and the spring bar which goes through the holes being undersized. The diameter isn't large enough. To correct it, you simply use a larger diameter spring bar and you drill the hole a smaller diameter. That tightens up the interference fit to an interference friction fit. Now, as you can see, the benefit is it doesn't feel stiff or kink, but it rattles. And we are looking at significant play. This is dreadful. Look at the amount of play up and down, side to side, longitudinally. And it rattles. Let's check the other side for continuity, because again, when I level criticism at a brand, I like to be fair rather than unfair, and I like to be unbiased. So, on both the 6 and the 12 o'clock side, articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, that's the benefit. Negative is rattles. Just look at the amount of play. And it's play in every direction. We've got lateral side to side play, so it clicks and rattles, up and down play, and longitudinal play in and out. Every single direction. It's dreadful. Absolutely dreadful. So the problem is it rattles and it clicks. My other concern is long-term durability, because the excess shear load put on the spring bar, how long is it going to be before it fails? due to the holes being elongated because we've got oversized holes and undersized spring bar going through them, so they're sloppy, and it puts the spring bar under excess shear load, and then eventually what happens is the spring bar fails, and then of course the bracelet comes undone and the piece drops on the ground and gets damaged. That's the problem with these kind of sloppy tolerances. It's not just that they rattle and they click, the problem is long-term durability. This is dreadful. We're not looking at a €100 and below price point piece here. We're looking at €216. This is competing directly head-to-head with San Martin, with the SN0133G at €197, for example. Dreadful. That's not the only problem. Now, in terms of finishing, to be fair, the brushed satin finishing has a beautiful luster to it. It's fully brushed satin finish. We don't have any mirror polishing to the links. Nice large chamfer to the top edge and the low edge of the flanks. That's good because it deletes the sharp edge to the top edge and the lower edge of the bracelet. Bracelet doesn't pull arm hairs, which is the benefit. That's good. Doesn't have any sharp edges, therefore it doesn't scratch the wrist. That's good. Problem is it's sloppy. It rattles. Every single one of the push pin links has excess play. Longitudinal, lateral, side to side, up and down play. Now you would expect this because it's a sloppy bracelet to articulate freely, but it doesn't. It's stiff. This is surprising because usually with bracelets that have too much play, they're sloppy. The benefit is they articulate freely, but this kinks. Every single one of the links kinks. It's stiff, as you can see. It doesn't flow freely. When I manipulate it, you can see it doesn't articulate. It doesn't flow freely like a Jubilee style or Beads of Rice style bracelet. The links all kink. So it should be free flowing because of course it has all this excess play. It's sloppy, but you can see it doesn't. They've actually made it too tight and it's dreadful. Let's check the other side for continuity. Again, sloppy, rattles. Cumulative effect is every single one of the push pin links has too much play, and over the length of the bracelet that cumulative play adds up, and then what you have is this very sloppy bracelet which rattles, and of course that's compounded by the sloppy end link. So on a positive note, to be fair, beautiful luster to the brushed satin finishing to the top side, underside and flanks. So we don't have mirror polished flanks. The underside, flanks and top side are brushed satin finish. Now there is a beautiful luster and they have deburred and chamfered the top edge and the lower edge of the flanks to a satisfactory standard. So again, doesn't pull arm hairs, doesn't feel sharp, doesn't scratch the wrist. I want to be fair when I'm giving criticism to it, but visually it looks good, but the problem is it rattles and it's sloppy. Now again, you would expect it to articulate freely when I manipulate it, but it doesn't. Every single one of the links kinks. It feels stiff, as you can see. So it's dreadful for two reasons. It's sloppy, play in every direction, but then also it doesn't articulate freely because you can see it kinks. What they've tried to do is they've tried to tighten it up to reduce the play in it, but they've overdone it. It's now too stiff. And you can see it doesn't articulate. Every single one of the links kinks. Problem with this is when it's on the wrist, it doesn't flow around the wrist. It doesn't articulate itself. You have to manually manipulate it because the links kink. This is just dreadful. It's one of the worst bracelets I have reviewed on my channel. I've reviewed over 500 pieces, a plethora of pieces, Chinese-made low-tier pieces between €0 and €500. This is dreadful. This is an example of how to get everything wrong with a bracelet because it's stiff and it kinks, but it's also sloppy and the end links are absolutely dreadful, as you can see. Look at the amount of play. This is an example of how to get everything wrong. Now to make matters worse, they've also used the production cost cutting measure of push pins. Now push pins are nothing unusual for low tier Chinese pieces, so why am I being critical? Well, if this were below €100, push pins are the industry standard, but at €216 one expects 1.2mm, 1.6mm screw pins. For example, the San Martin SN0133G uses screw pins in its bracelets, which is the industry standard at the €200 price point. It's 197. This really should have screw pins. It's wholly unacceptable to be using push pins at the €216 price point, and it's dreadful as a result. So let's look at the clasp in detail. So, pressed stainless steel clasp. What we're looking at here is mistake after mistake. Production cost cutting measure after production cost cutting measure, QC defect after QC defect. These kind of pressed stainless steel clasps were acceptable in the 1990s to the early 2000s. We're now in 2025. The industry standard, even for low-tier Chinese pieces below €100, is a solid milled 316L grade stainless steel clasp that you're all familiar with a flip lock or 2-button push. Not these kind of light gauge pressed stainless steel clasps, as you can see. So no micro adjustment mechanism. We don't have a ratcheting mechanism for on the fly adjustment. We don't have a glide lock style mechanism. We have the minimum 4 holes drilled in the flanks. Brushed satin finish to the top side, underside and flanks is done to an acceptable standard, beautiful lustre to it, and the flip lock is signed with the Cadola text logo, which is acceptable. Proportions of the pushers are okay, proportions of the flip block are okay, and we've got a scallop beneath the flip block to make it easier to flick your thumbnail or index fingernail underneath the clasp to flick up the flip block, so that's okay. Undercuts are deburred and chamfered, no sharp edges, doesn't have a sharp edge on the top edge or the lower edge, and no sharp corners, so the finishing is okay. But my criticism is very light gauge. This needs to be upgraded to a solid mil 316L grade stainless steel clasp with a ratcheting mechanism, either glide lock style or a trigger push, and it really does need to be upgraded because this is €216, and I keep referencing San Martin, but this is competing head to head with San Martin at the same price point in the low tier. The SN0133G, which I previously reviewed, that has a micro adjustment clasp, which is solid mil 316L grade stainless steel, 15mm on the fly adjustment, heavy gauge to it. That is the industry standard in 2025 at €197 price point. It's competing with that, and this is dreadful. This is the kind of pressed stainless steel clasp one would expect on a €50 piece, not €216. It's dreadful. Let's look at the internals. So scalloping is beneficial because the scallop or recess means that you can put your index fingernail or thumbnail beneath the flip block and prise it up. 2 button push triggers are sprung loaded okay. Internals are solid milled 316L grade stainless steel, beautiful lustre to the top side, underside and flanks. No sharp edge to the internals on the top edge or the lower edge of the flanks. Centre section doesn't have sharp corners, so it's been deburred and chamfered well. Let's check the hinge pins. Left hand hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, that's the benefit. Negative is it's dreadful, sloppy. Lateral side to side play, it clicks. Longitudinal play, up and down play, play in every single direction, and it's significant play. This is dreadful. Let's check the centre hinge pin, which is a pin which is riveted on either end. Articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff, just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus on it. Articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, that's the benefit. It's sloppy. Lateral side to side play, up and down play, play in every single direction, it rattles. Dreadful amount of play. Finally, let's check the right hand pin, which is a spring bar. Articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. Sloppy. It clicks. Play in every single direction. Longitudinal, lateral, side to side, up and down play. And it's significant. This is simply due to an undersized spring bar going through an oversized diameter hole. Easy to correct because you simply use a large diameter spring bar and you make the hole smaller diameter, and that increases the friction interference fit. This is a fundamental to get correct. Absolutely dreadful. So left hand, centre and right hand hinge pin have too much play. And again, cumulative effect of that is this mill clasp rattles. It's sloppy. My concern is not just the sound of it rattling. My concern is the long-term durability, because how long is it going to be before the excess shear load placed on the left-hand hinge pin, centre hinge pin and right-hand spring bar pin, how long is it going to be before the excess shear load causes one of the pins to fail, the clasp to open and the piece to drop on the ground and get damaged? That's the problem with excess play. Sloppy clasps like this because it's excess shear load on the pins and eventually the pins fail. That's the problem. It's dreadful. One could be magnanimous below €100. I keep repeating it, but it's a very important point. €216. This does not say to me €216. This says to me €50. It's dreadful. Right, so let's look at the case back in detail. Exhibition case back, glazed with mineral crystal. Now, I'm not going to be critical of the use of mineral crystal because, strictly speaking, an exhibition case back doesn't need to be glazed with sapphire crystal. Front of the piece does need sapphire crystal because that's an area that's prone to daily wear and tear, being scuffed and scratched. It's acceptable at this price point to use mineral crystal glazing in an exhibition case back as a production cost-cutting measure in order to maximise profit margin per piece. Clarity is good. They've decorated the NH35A rotor with the Cadola logo and they've signed it, which is good, rather than just using a sterile rotor, the standard Seiko NH35A rotor. So no other decoration to the movement. Now, the problem with the case back is it's too thick. And this compounds the problem of the single dome sapphire crystal, which is also too thick. They've used a very deep bubble back case back and they've glazed it with a very thick mineral crystal. The NH35A is a thick calibre. It does need more clearance than other lower profile calibers. So to put it into perspective, a Miyota 9000 series such as the 9015 and 9039 needs less clearance between the case back and also the rotor. It's a thinner calibre. The NH35A is thicker and therefore the rotor needs more clearance between the sapphire crystal or mineral crystal glazing in the exhibition caseback and the rotor to prevent the rotor fouling it, but nonetheless it doesn't need to have such depth. If you look at the stainless steel portion of this caseback, it's far too thick. This is 1mm far too thick, and the problem is the mineral crystal glazing is also too thick. Now the reason why I'm being so critical is we're not looking at a dive piece with 200 metres or 300 metres of water resistance. It's a given that with a dive piece with 200 metres or 300 metres, the sapphire crystal in the front of the piece and the sapphire crystal or mineral crystal in the exhibition caseback need to be made thicker in order to withstand 200 or 300 metres of pressure. That's a given. This is not. This is only 100 metres. So therefore, it doesn't need to have such a deep stainless steel portion, and it doesn't need to have such a deep mineral crystal, such a thick mineral crystal, because it's only 100 metres. We're not looking at a 200 metre dive piece here. So they've made the exhibition caseback 1mm too thick. The problem with it is this piece is now 14.1. And of course with an NH35A, one would expect this to be 13mm with a double dome sapphire crystal or a box top hat crystal. That's nothing unusual. But it is unusual to see a 14.1mm piece which has an exhibition caseback and single dome sapphire crystal. The single dome sapphire crystal is 1mm too thick. They should have used a flat sapphire crystal. That would have reduced it by 1mm from 14.1 down to 13.1. They then compounded that mistake by using a very thick exhibition caseback with a stainless steel portion which is too deep and the mineral crystal is too thick. This adds another millimetre, so we're now looking at 14.1. It's dreadful. On a positive note, the end links to the bracelet are a good tight fit to the head of the piece. They could have used the better option of quick release stainless steel spring bars because we've got standard stainless steel spring bars, but the end links are a tight fit to the head of the piece. The underside to the head of the piece is finished to a good standard concentric CNC lathe tool machining, nice large bevels which delete the sharp four corner tips of the lugs, and the undercuts are deburred and chamfered very well, so no sharp edges. The engraving is high definition and crisp, font is clearly legible but also not rough, it's not sharp, it doesn't feel abrasive, so the engraving is sharp and high definition, but it doesn't feel rough against the wrist. They've done a good job of engraving the stainless steel portion. The stainless steel part of the case back is concentric CNC lathe tool machined, and the milled slots are deburred and chamfered very well. So the finishing is good to the exhibition case back, but it's just too deep. Proportions are incorrect. Right, so I'll give you a wrist shots and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now, I haven't sized the bracelet, and I'm pleased to report it does have a long bracelet which would fit up to a 9-inch wrist. I can easily slide an index finger beneath the bracelet and clasp at all times. That indicates this has a long bracelet which would fit a maximum 9-inch wrist size. There are enough removable links on the 6 and the 12 o'clock side of the bracelet to size this down to a minimum 6-inch wrist size and up to a maximum 9-inch wrist size, and that's on position 4 out of 4, the longest position on the micro adjustment holes on the flanks. So long bracelet. Problem is bracelet is too light. To clarify, this feels like a top heavy piece. Now the heft isn't too heavy for a 42mm. One would expect this to be in excess of 150 grams because it is large at 42. It's not. This is only 149 grams. Now normally I would give praise to that because anything below 150 grams is the sweet spot for comfort level. When you're wearing a piece for long periods of time, such as 8 to 12 hours per day, 150 grams and below is the sweet spot. This is 149. So why am I being critical? I'll tell you why. This feels like a thick slab of 316L grade stainless steel sitting on top of the wrist rather than curving around it. What it feels like is a very heavy head of the piece with a very hollow, lightweight bracelet. And the problem is the bracelet, although it does have the correct perfection personified taper, 20 to 16, the links of the bracelet feel too hollow. They feel light. They lack heft. This feels like a light bracelet on a heavy head of the piece. This compounds the problem of the light gauge of pressed stainless steel clasp. This really needs a micro adjustment clasp with more meat on it. It needs a heavier gauge. A solid milled micro adjustment clasp with ratcheting mechanism would add some heft. Also the bracelet links need to be made thicker. And when I talk about thicker, I'm not referring to the taper, I'm talking about the actual thickness of the links. They don't feel dense, they feel hollow. And the problem is, the bracelet feels too light, the clasp feels too light, so we've got a very lightweight, poor quality bracelet on a heavy, thick piece. And 14.1 really compounds it because visually it looks too thick, it also feels too thick. And then you have this dreadful distortion effect and magnification effect. When I tilt it at an oblique angle, you can see the problem. The single dome crystal doesn't just reduce legibility because of the magnification effect, the problem is the distortion. Imagine if this were a double dome sapphire crystal or a flat sapphire crystal with AR coating, clear AR coating. When I tilt it at an oblique angle, if it were double domed, you wouldn't get this distortion and magnification. You could read the time, read the dial at an oblique angle. It's compounded by the blue hue of the AR coating because, as you can see, it makes it like a mirror, a blue tinted mirror, rather than clear AR coating which would reduce that glare. Just look at the amount of glare. This is poor quality blue tinted AR coating. What we're looking at is mistake after mistake, production cost cutting measure after production cost cutting measure. Should be a flat sapphire crystal, that would reduce this down from 14.1 thick down to 13.1, make it more wearable. That would enhance the comfort level and the feel good factor. As it stands, the head of the piece is far too large, and I say that even on my large 8-inch wrist. 42 is far too big. This piece should be 39 or 40. The other problem is the lug to lug. The case is completely misproportioned. It has a 48.8 lug to lug, which is 0.8mm too long. You'll know from my previous reviews, 48 is the perfect sweet spot for lug to lug, regardless of whether you have a 6 to 7-inch wrist or a 7 to 8-inch wrist respectively. 48 is the perfect lug to lug. It's the industry standard for good reason. Regardless of whether a piece is 38, 39, 40 or 41, 48 is accepted as the perfect lug to lug. At 48.8, the tips of the lugs are too long. You can see we have this abhorrent gap beneath the undercuts to the flanks and the tip of the lugs because we've got this deep bubble back case back. So the piece never sits close to the wrist. It doesn't wrap around the wrist. We've got this huge gap. And this is the problem with a bubble back case back. The head of the piece never sits down on the wrist close and snug. We always have this huge gap due to the depth. The case back is 1mm too thick. The single dome sapphire crystal is 1mm too thick, so they've added 2mm of thickness to this piece wholly unnecessarily. This could easily be 12.1 if they used a flat sapphire crystal and a 1mm thinner exhibition case back. It would enhance the comfort level and the feel good factor because the case would sit closer to the wrist. We wouldn't have this abhorrent gap. Problem with the end links in the bracelet is they don't articulate well. You can see the tips of the lugs don't have the correct profile. They're 0.8mm too long, and the problem is the end link in the bracelet can't articulate like a female pivoted end link, and we always have this gap. Fit is dreadful. Comfort level is poor. Feel good factor is poor. Feels top heavy, even though it's 149 grams. The bracelet and clasp feel far too light, head of the piece looks too large, feels too large, like a slab of 316R grade stainless steel. 42 is far too big. It's dreadful. So disappointing. Comfort level and feel good factor is dreadful, and of course the bracelet rattles, so it doesn't sound good either. And of course it doesn't articulate well because of the stiff links. It kinks. It's just an example of how to get everything wrong with a low tier piece. Right, so let's do a loom test and we'll see how the loom performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute peak. So this piece uses C3 Super Luminova on the applied indices and the baton hands. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it's disappointing. The potency of the exciter initially looks okay because the loom pip glows green, the applied indices glow green, and the baton hands glow green in the same tone. So in daylight there's no colour tone mismatch. They don't look whiter or creamer on the dial or the hands, which is good. But you can now see the problem. The exciter lacks potency, so we're clearly looking at 2 to 3 layers, or a maximum of 3 to 4 layers on the dial and the handset. So although there's a good colour tone match, the same green tone used, the potency of the exciter is so weak the camera can no longer autofocus on it. So you can see the problem I was referring to with a bezel. The loom pip is undersized because they've used this 12-hour scale and they've used 2 rings, one black anodised ring and the inner orange anodised ring. And the problem is because they've used this inner orange anodised ring with minute ticks, they haven't left enough room for the orange anodised Arabic numerals for the 12-hour markers or the 12-hour Arabic numerals. And the problem is they've had to undersize the loom pip. Rather than having an applied loom pip on the aluminium bezel insert with a large diameter pip, they've struggled to apply 5 to 6 layers, and you can see the problem. The loom pip is undersized. The other problem is the baton hands don't allow for a large area or large plot of C3 Super Luminova to be applied, as per Mercedes hands or Snowflake hands. That's a given. But nonetheless, even with baton hands, they should be able to have 5 to 6 layers of C3 applied. You can see the problem. The colour tone match is good, but the applied stick indices, they don't have 5 to 6 layers. We are looking at 2 to 3 on the dial and the maximum of 3 to 4 on the baton hands. And I would apply the same criticism to the Lume Pip. It's undersized, but we're looking at a maximum of 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 layers. This is definitely not 5 to 6 on the Lume Pip, 5 to 6 on the indices, 5 to 6 on the baton hands. It's fading immediately, and it exponentially with time it fades to nothing. This is dreadful. Now, as I've detailed, I'm wholly critical of this for the simple reason that other low-tier Chinese brands are capable of getting it correct at a much lower price point. So to clarify, I keep repeating it, but I want you to be mindful of it. Low tier is €0 to €500, and for reference, I will refer to the Steel Dive SD1953, which is €80. It's much less expensive. But the Steel Dive SD1953 that you're all familiar with has 5 to 6 layers of BGW9 on a fully loomed ceramic bezel insert, 5 to 6 on the applied indices, 5 to 6 on the Mercedes handset. It is excellent performance for an €80 low tier Chinese made piece. The Steel Dive SD1953 has excellent BGW9. And if Steel Dive are capable of doing it at only €80, there's absolutely no excuse for Cadola not doing it at €216. This is more than double the price of an SD1953. But it doesn't have a fully loomed ceramic bezel insert. It doesn't have 5 to 6 layers of BGW9 on the insert, the dial and the hands, does it? This is only 2 to 3 layers of C3 with an undersized Lume Pip. It's absolutely dreadful. One of the worst performing C3 Superlume Nova performance I've seen on my channel. I've reviewed over 500 watches, a plethora of Chinese low-tier watches between €0 and €500. This is one of the worst. Just look at that. Initially it looks like it's got potency, but very quickly, exponentially with time, the exciter fades immediately, and it quickly fades to nothing, to negligible performance. Just look how fast it's fading. This is dreadful. This is a maximum of 3 to 4. I think it's 2 to 3 layers. Production cost cutting measure after production cost cutting measure, and this is a production cost cutting measure too far at €216. And I keep referring to it, but for reference, the San Martin SN0133G stellar performance that uses BGWX1, which is fantastic. The exciter is potent, 5 to 6 layers on the bezel, 5 to 6 layers on the hands, 5 to 6 layers on the dial, as it should be. That's €197. If Steel Dive can do it at €80 with the SD1953 with BGW9 in 6 layers, Cadola can do it. €216. Dreadful. Right, so finally let's discuss the movement use, because it's one of my favourite aspects of the piece. You'll all be familiar with the Seiko Calibre NH35A Automatic. It's a reliable, well-proven workhorse movement made in 2 plants by Seiko. They make it in Malaysia and they also make it in Japan. There's no discernible difference between the Malaysian and the Japanese-made versions. Cadola are using the Japanese-made version. It's been in production since 2018, so at this stage in 2025 it's a reliable, well-proven workhorse calibre. No reliability issues reported whatsoever. It has 24 joules. It runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz. Has hand winding and hacking, which use for complications, and they work well, as I've demonstrated. Also has a quick set date complication, which works well. 41-hour power reserve is perfectly acceptable. Stated accuracy is -20 to +40 seconds per day, so rather wide accuracy range. Cadola are not doing a good job of regulating it, and again, this is production cost cutting measure after production cost cutting measure. This one is running consistently at +12 seconds per day, which is dreadful for an NH35A. To clarify, if you regulate an NH35A in 5 positions, it is possible to attain chronometer accuracy of -4 to +6, and certainly it's easy to attain -10 to +10. That's the bare minimum, even if you only regulate it in 3 positions. But if you regulate it in 5 positions, as per San Martin, chronometer accuracy is possible. You can regulate it to +5, for example. This one is running at +12, which is dreadful. So clearly Cadola are not doing a good job of regulating the NH35As they're using. Now, subjectively, one could say, well, +12 is within the stated accuracy of -20 to +40, but that's not really acceptable because it's a huge accuracy range. -20 to +40 is a massive accuracy range. It's very easy to regulate the NH35A in 5 positions to ± 10. That should be the absolute minimum. Although the stated is -20 to +40, in reality, ± 10 is nothing unusual, and that's only in 3 positions. If you do it in 5, you can easily attain chronometer accuracy of, say, -4 to +6. San Martin are regulating the NH35A to +5, And I previously reviewed the SN0133G that had +5 accuracy, which is excellent. So disappointing accuracy, +12, and the NH35A can be regulated better. So production cost cutting measure after production cost cutting measure, QC defect after QC defect. So lastly, I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch meet 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price points. So low tier piece, price point is €216. I'm going to declare it poor quality, and I'm going to declare it poor value at €216. The reason why I say it's poor quality and poor value is because of the QC defects. Just to remind you, the main QC defects is we've got half a click of backplate in the bezel. The bezel gets tighter and looser through the 360 degrees. End links in the bracelet are sloppy in every direction, dreadful. Bracelet rattles, it's sloppy, dreadful. Also kinks, it's one of the worst bracelets I've experienced. Everything about it is wrong. We've also got the production cost cutting measure of pushpins. Clasp is light gauge pressed stainless steel, dreadful. 3 hinge pins are sloppy, dreadful. So what we're looking at is QC defect after QC defect, and as if that's not enough, we've also got the dreadful performance of the blue hue to the AR coating, and also the single dome crystal, which adds distortion, as you can see. So legibility is poor, AR coating is poor, and as if that's not bad enough, we've got the poor performance of 2 to 3 layers of C3 versus 5 to 6, which is the industry standard. It's just dreadful. Everything about this watch tells me cost cutting measure. So it's production cost cutting measure after production cost cutting measure, QC defect after QC defect. And as I've detailed, this is going directly head to head with San Martin in the low tier at the €200 price point. The SN0133G I previously reviewed is €197. This is €216. It's more expensive. But everything about this piece is production cost cutting measure. Everything about it is QC defect. So it's a poor quality piece and it's poor value, and for that reason unfortunately I cannot recommend it. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Cadola Ahrens Automatic Racecraft Black. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.